You wake up and feel that certain weight in your chest. You look around and see people energized by their routines, their jobs, their hobbies, their clearly defined passions, and you feel something strange, a distance. It's not envy, it's not exactly sadness. It's a sense of not belonging that eats away at you from the inside. You try to fit into the groups, the professions, the identities society offers like ready-made boxes to inhabit, but nothing seems to fit right. It's like wearing clothes that are the wrong size, always tight somewhere, always loose in another place. You wonder if there's something wrong with you, if this inability to comfortably settle into any category is a manufacturing defect in your existence. At night, when everyone else is asleep, you lie awake wondering if this feeling of always being on the fringe, always observing from the outside, always feeling that what excites others leaves you curiously empty, is normal. You've tried being the dedicated professional. You've tried being the passionate creative. You've tried defining yourself by one thing. But each attempt feels like a betrayal of parts of yourself that get suffocated when you choose just one identity. And then comes the guilt, because society tells you that you need to choose, specialize, define yourself, and you simply can't do it without feeling like you're mutilating essential pieces of who you are. But what if I told you that Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the horrors of Auschwitz and revolutionized psychotherapy, discovered that this feeling of not fitting into anything isn't a weakness, but potentially the greatest sign that you were made for something much bigger? What if this existential restlessness you carry isn't a problem to be solved, but a calling to be understood? Frankl found a truth in the concentration camps that was both devastating and liberating. The people who survived weren't necessarily the physically strongest, but those who managed to see a unique meaning in their existence, a purpose that transcended any limited category. And he noticed something revolutionary about those who, like you, don't easily fit into predefined molds. Frankl tells the story of one of his patients, a brilliant man in his 40s who came to his office devastated because he couldn't choose between his multiple passions and talents. He was a gifted musician, had an engineering background, wrote poetry that moved readers and showed remarkable aptitude for teaching. Society demanded that he choose a path, a clear professional identity, but every time he tried, he felt he was betraying the other parts of himself. He was paralyzed by the abundance of possibilities, consumed by the anxiety that any choice would be an irreparable renunciation. Frankl listened to all of this and then asked a question that completely shifted the man's perspective. Why do you believe you need to fit into just one thing? Who said the meaning of your life has to fit into the categories that other people have created? This question reveals the core of Frankl's thinking on identity and purpose. Frankl argued that modern industrial society had created a dangerous obsession with specialization, with the clear definition of roles, with fitting people into specific functions that served the productive system. But this demand for categorization goes against something fundamental in human nature: our unique capacity for self-transcendence, our ability to move beyond any fixed definition, to reinvent ourselves, to integrate multiple dimensions of human experience. Frankl called this the noetic dimension of existence, the specifically human layer that cannot be reduced to biological impulses or social conditioning. It is in this dimension that our essential freedom resides, our capacity to choose who we want to be, regardless of external pressures or limitations imposed upon us. In the concentration camps, Frankl observed something extraordinary that completely defies the logic of social fitting. There were prisoners who, before the war, were university professors doing manual labor alongside illiterate laborers, renowned doctors sharing the same thin soup with common criminals, famous artists carrying stones alongside peasants. All social categories, all professional identities, all definitions that had previously given meaning to their lives were brutally stripped away. And you know what Frankl discovered? That those who survived psychologically intact, who didn't let themselves be destroyed internally by the dehumanization of the camp, were not those who desperately clung to their old identities. They were those who managed to find a meaning that transcended any category, that existed independently of any social or professional role. A professor who survived did not do so by still seeing himself as a professor, but because he found meaning in preserving his human dignity even when all external conditions denied that dignity. A doctor who maintained his sanity did not do so by clinging to his medical identity, but by discovering that he could be useful to his fellow sufferers in ways that had nothing to do with formal medicine. Frankl realized that the authentic meaning of life can never be found in external categories or social roles, but always in the unique relationship that each person establishes with their own existence and with the circumstances they face. This discovery has radical implications for you who don't fit into anything. And now I want to pause and really talk to you. I know that many of you watching this video silently carry this sense of displacement, feeling that there's something wrong because you can't clearly define yourselves, because you don't fit into the boxes society offers. So tell me here in the comments, have you ever felt that you don't fit into any professional, social, or identity category? Again, that makes you question if there's something wrong with you. If so, simply write, "I don't fit and it distresses me," nothing more. And know that by doing so, you are helping other people in the comments feel less alone. It's often liberating just to see that others go through the exact same thing and are on this same journey of seeking a purpose that transcends limited categories. Your courage to speak about it in the comments creates a safe space for others who feel isolated in this experience. Let's create a community here of people who understand that not fitting in can be the beginning of something much greater. Frankl developed a concept he called the will to meaning, a radical departure from Freud's will to pleasure and Adler's will to power. For Frankl, what fundamentally drives human beings isn't the pursuit of impulse satisfaction or the drive for dominance over others, but the search for meaning. And here's the crucial point. True meaning is never generic, never a one-size-fits-all formula, and can't be found simply by adopting society's prescribed values and goals. Meaning is always singular, always unique to each person at each moment of their life. Frankl wrote that the meaning of life differs from person to person, from day to day, from hour to hour. What matters is not the meaning of life in general, but the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. This means that trying to fit into predefined boxes, attempting to find your purpose by adopting goals that have worked for others, is fundamentally at odds with the nature of an authentic search for meaning. When you feel like you don't fit anywhere, it might be because your soul is refusing to accept borrowed meanings, second-hand significances, purposes that weren't born from your own unique confrontation with existence. Frankl viewed this not as pathology, but as existential health, a sign that your noetic dimension is functioning correctly, refusing to settle for pre-packaged answers. Contemporary society has made this issue even more acute than it was in Frankl's time. We live in an era of professional hyper-specialization, of identities fragmented across social media, of constant pressure to define ourselves through ever more specific labels. You're invited to declare yourself as a list of attributes: your profession, your political leanings, your consumer preferences, your hobbies, your group affiliations. And for many, this categorization offers genuine comfort, a sense of belonging and clarity. But for those who don't fit, each attempt to define themselves this way feels like a violent reduction of the complexity of who they are. Frankl would argue this happens because you're intuitively aware of something profound, that the human essence resists complete categorization, that there's always a dimension within us that transcends any definition, that our fundamental freedom is precisely the capacity to never be fully reducible to any set of characteristics. Frankl called this self-distancing, the human ability to step back from oneself, to observe one's own existence from the outside, to not identify completely with any particular aspect of who we are. This capacity is what allows us to change, grow, reinvent ourselves. And the more developed it is in you, the harder it will be to accept rigid definitions and limiting boxes. But here's the question likely pounding in your head. If I'm not supposed to fit into predefined boxes, how will I find direction in life? How will I make practical decisions about career, relationships, where to invest my time and energy? Frankl had a surprising answer to that. He wasn't saying you should avoid commitment or live in perpetual indecision. Quite the opposite. Frankl argued that when you stop trying to fit into boxes and start genuinely responding to the specific demands life places before you, a clear direction emerges. But this direction doesn't come from within. It's not something you discover through deep introspection or by chasing your inner passion. It comes from outside, from life itself posing questions to you through the concrete situations you face. Frankl wrote that we should not ask what the meaning of our life is, but rather recognize that we are questioned by life. Life is posing questions to us, and we can only answer by being responsible. This is one of Frankl's most revolutionary and least understood insights. Meaning isn't something you find by looking inward, but something you realize by responding to what's outside, to what life is demanding of you in each concrete moment. Let me give you an example of how this works in practice, using a case Frankl often cited. A woman came to him feeling completely lost because she couldn't choose between her promising career as a violinist and her desire to dedicate herself to humanitarian causes. She felt choosing one would mean betraying the other, and the indecision was paralyzing her life. Frankl didn't advise her to pick one or the other, nor did he suggest she find some artificial balance between them. Instead, he helped her realize the question was flawed. The issue wasn't which identity to choose, but what specific response life was demanding of her at that concrete moment. And that answer would change with time, with circumstances, with the opportunities that presented themselves. Perhaps during one period of her life, the most urgent need she could fulfill would be through her music, bringing beauty and solace to people through her art. In another period, perhaps the clearest calling would come from direct humanitarian work. The mistake was trying to define once and for all who she was, instead of remaining open and responsive to what each specific situation asked of her. Frankl helped her see that she didn't need to fit into the category of musician or the category of humanitarian. She needed to be a responsible person in the face of life's concrete demands, and those demands would utilize different aspects of who she was at different times. This understanding leads us to something even deeper in Frankl's thought, the concept of self-transcendence. Frankl argued that the essence of human existence is always pointing towards something beyond itself, always directed outward, whether toward a meaning to be realized or another human being to be encountered. The more you try to define yourself, to box yourself in, to lock yourself into a clear and stable identity, the further you move away from this self-transcendent nature. Frankl wrote that man is always pointed towards something or someone beyond himself, whether it be a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more a person forgets himself by dedicating himself to serving a cause or loving another person, the more human he becomes and the more he fulfills his own potential. This means the anxiety you feel about not fitting into categories might be stemming from an overemphasis on yourself, on defining who you are, rather than simply responding to what needs to be done. Frankl observed in the camps that those who survived psychologically were often those who had someone or something outside themselves to live for, not those focused on preserving their own identity or self-image. If these ideas are resonating deeply with you, if you feel like you've finally found someone who understands that not fitting in isn't a flaw, but can be a calling, subscribe to this channel. Here we'll explore the thinking of Frankl and other humanist philosophers weekly, offering real answers to the existential questions so many of us carry in silence. You don't have to walk this journey of self-discovery and the search for authentic meaning alone. This channel exists to build a community of people brave enough to question the ready-made boxes, to seek genuine meaning, to grow beyond the limitations society imposes. Click that subscribe button and join us on this journey. And if this video is helping you see your situation in a new light, give it a like so more people can discover these transformative ideas. Frankl identified 3 main pathways through which we can find meaning in life. And understanding these pathways is crucial for anyone who feels like they don't fit anywhere. The first pathway is through creating something or accomplishing a deed, which he called creative values. The second is through experiencing something or encountering someone, which he called experiential values. And the third, perhaps the most profound, is through the attitude we adopt in the face of unavoidable suffering, which he called attitudinal values. What's revolutionary here is that Frankl doesn't rank these pathways. He doesn't say that creating is superior to experiencing, or that any one of these is the correct path everyone must follow. On the contrary, he argues that different people at different times will find meaning through different pathways, and the same person can move between these pathways throughout their life. For you who don't fit in, this is profoundly liberating. It means you don't have to choose to be the creator or the contemplator, the doer or the thinker, the active or the receptive. You can honor all these dimensions as life demands. One day, meaning might come from creating something new, another day from simply being present for someone in need, another day from adopting a courageous attitude in the face of an unavoidable difficulty. Frankl lived this quite literally in Auschwitz, where sometimes meaning came from preserving a manuscript hidden in his clothes, sometimes from sharing his last crumb of bread with a sick fellow inmate, sometimes simply from deciding that the Nazis could take everything from him except the freedom to choose his inner attitude in the face of horror. But we need to address a serious objection here. Someone might argue that this refusal to fit in, this insistence on remaining open and undefined, is just a sophisticated way of avoiding commitment, a rationalization for not making difficult choices, an excuse to remain in the paralysis of indecision. And Frankl would partially agree with this criticism. He did see danger in the person who uses existential openness as an excuse not to take concrete responsibility. The crucial difference lies between remaining open to life's demands versus remaining paralyzed by the fear of choosing. Frankl emphasized that human freedom is not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to responsibility. You are free to respond, not free to avoid responding. So if your feeling of not fitting in is leading you to responsive action, to genuinely responding to what life is asking of you, even if it means temporary commitments to specific paths, then you're on the right track. But if it's leading you to paralysis, to the eternal postponement of decisions, to refusing to commit to anything because nothing feels perfect, then you need to recognize that this isn't existential authenticity, but an escape from responsibility. The point isn't to avoid all fits, but to avoid reducing yourself entirely to any one fit, to always maintain the awareness that you are more than any specific role you are playing at the moment. Frankl had a therapeutic technique called de-reflection that is particularly helpful for people suffering from not fitting in. He noticed that many of his patients became trapped in cycles of excessive self-observation, constantly monitoring and analyzing themselves, trying to figure out who they really were, what their true self was, what their authentic purpose was. And this hyper-reflection not only didn't solve anything, it made the situation worse because the person became increasingly self-absorbed, increasingly focused on themselves, increasingly distant from the self-transcendence that is essential for finding meaning. De-reflection involves helping the person stop observing themselves so much and start looking outward, towards the concrete tasks that need to be done, towards the people who need help, towards the meanings waiting to be realized in the world. Frankl found that when people stop obsessively asking who they are and simply start doing what needs to be done, an authentic identity emerges naturally as a byproduct of meaningful action. You don't find out who you are by looking inward. You discover who you are by looking at what life is asking of you and responding to it with all your capacity. There's a story Frankl tells that perfectly illustrates this. A young man came to his office in distress because he wanted to be a writer, but couldn't write anything meaningful. The more he tried to force creativity, the more he focused on becoming a writer, the more blocked he became. Frankl helped him realize he was caught in what he called hyperintention, focusing excessively on the goal rather than on the process and the meaning. Frankl advised him to stop trying to be a writer and simply pay attention to the world, to people, to experiences, and write about what genuinely moved him without concern for whether it would make him a professional writer or not. The paradox is that the moment he stopped chasing the identity of a writer, he started writing truly meaningful things, because he was now writing in response to something real, not in pursuit of a self-image. This is the essence of what it means to not fit in productively. You stop trying to become something specific and start genuinely responding to what you encounter. And in the process, an authentic and meaningful life emerges. A life that likely won't fit neatly into any existing category because it will be uniquely yours. Frankl also had profound insights into what he called the existential vacuum, a condition he saw as endemic in modern society. He argued that in the absence of shared traditional values, that told people who they should be. Many modern individuals experience a sense of meaninglessness, an inner emptiness they try to fill with distractions, consumerism, superficial activism, or conformity. But here's the crucial insight. Frankl saw this void not necessarily as a negative thing, but as potentially fertile ground, an opening where genuine meaning could emerge. The problem isn't the emptiness itself, but how people react to it. Some desperately try to flee from it, filling every moment with activity and distraction. Others sink into it, letting themselves be consumed by nihilism and despair. But there's a third way, to consciously inhabit the void, to use it as a listening space where you can more clearly hear what life is asking of you. For you who don't quite fit in, the discomfort you feel might be precisely this existential void, and the question isn't how to escape it, but how to inhabit it productively, how to use it as fertile soil where a unique and authentic meaning can sprout. Let's return to that truth Frankl discovered in Auschwitz that can completely transform how you see your situation. In the camps, Frankl realized that those who found meaning even in the most horrific circumstances weren't people who held some special category, some privileged identity, some protected social role. They were people who, stripped of absolutely everything, including their names replaced by numbers, could still choose their inner attitude. One prisoner, Frankl describes, found meaning in secretly observing a sunset through a small barrack window, marveling at the beauty that still existed in the world despite the horror. Another found meaning in small acts of kindness to even weaker fellow inmates, sharing their meager rations. Another found meaning in mentally preserving poems they could recite when liberated. None of these activities fit any useful category within the logic of the concentration camp. None helped these individuals physically survive. But these uncategorizable activities, these acts of human affirmation that served no practical purpose, were precisely what preserved these people's humanity, what stopped them from being completely dehumanized. Frankl saw that the human capacity to find or create meaning completely transcends any external system of categories, any set of socially defined roles. It's an irreducible capacity that emerges from our fundamental freedom to choose our attitude, even when we cannot choose our circumstances. What does this mean for you living in immensely better circumstances, yet still feeling like you don't fit in? It means the pressure you feel to define yourself, to fit into a box, to choose a category and live within it, is entirely external to your essential nature as a human being. Frankl would say you're feeling the conflict between your noetic dimension, your capacity for self-transcendence and freedom, and the demands of a society organized around functional categories. And this conflict isn't a sign that there's something wrong with you, but a sign that you're in touch with something profoundly true about the human condition. You are resisting reduction, refusing to be completed by limiting categories. This resistance, when rightly directed, doesn't lead to nihilistic isolation, but to authentic existential responsibility. You stop asking which box you should fit into and start asking what this specific situation, this unique moment this person before you is asking, and you respond with all that you are, using whatever aspect of yourself is relevant to that specific response, without worrying if it fits the coherent picture you or others have of who you should be. There's one last dimension of Frankl's thought we need to explore, and it's perhaps the most radical. Frankl argued that true meaning can only be found, never invented. You can't simply decide what the meaning of your life will be based on your subjective preferences or desires. Meaning is out there, in objective reality, in the real demands life places before you, waiting to be discovered and fulfilled. This means that the entire modern industry of finding your passion, following your dreams, discovering your inner purpose, is fundamentally misguided from a Franklian perspective. It's not that these things are entirely useless, but they place the focus in the wrong spot. They suggest meaning is inside you, waiting to be discovered, when in reality, it's outside you, waiting to be fulfilled through your actions. For you who don't fit in, this is incredibly liberating, because it means you can stop looking inward, trying to discover who you really are, what your true passion is, what category will finally define you perfectly. Instead, you can look outward to the world and ask, what is asking to be done here? Who is needing help? What meaning is waiting to be fulfilled through me? And when you answer these questions with concrete action, you discover who you are as a byproduct of that meaningful action. So here's the full truth that emerges from all of this. You don't fit in anywhere because you weren't made to fit. You were made to respond, to transcend, to create meaning through your unique choices in the face of the unique circumstances that only you face. Categories are useful social tools, but mistaking them for your essence is a profound existential error. Frankl would see your feeling of not belonging not as pathology, but as health. Not as a problem, but as a calling. Not as a weakness, but as the specific strength of human consciousness awakened to its own freedom and responsibility. The challenge isn't to finally find the right category where you fit perfectly, but to learn to live productively without fitting in, to genuinely respond to life's demands without reducing yourself to any single role, to maintain your existential openness while still acting with commitment and responsibility in the concrete world. This is a harder path than simply accepting a ready-made identity, but it's also a more authentic, more human path, more true to your essential nature as a free and responsible being. Frankl lived this path to the end, being simultaneously a psychiatrist, a philosopher, a concentration camp survivor, an author, a speaker, a husband, a father, and none of these categories alone fully defined him. He always remained larger than any description, always transcending definitions, always responding to what life called for regardless of which aspect of himself he needed to mobilize for that response. And it was precisely this refusal to fit neatly into any single category that made his contribution to the world so unique and transformative. Now the question that remains for you is this: will you continue to fight against your nature by trying to fit where you don't belong? Or will you embrace the harder, more rewarding call to live authentically without rigid categories, freely and responsibly responding to what each moment asks? If you're ready for this journey, if these ideas have sparked something in you, subscribe to this channel to continue exploring these deep questions that few places discuss with seriousness. Share this video with someone you know who also doesn't fit in and might need to hear that this isn't a defect, but a vocation. And tell me in the comments, after all of this, how do you now see your experience of not fitting in? Has your perspective shifted? Let's keep this conversation going because it matters, because you matter, and because together we can create a space where not fitting in is finally understood not as a problem, but as a possibility.